classroom, and everybody's settled down, and the teacher is saying, the art lessons are here, and they all get a happy look on their face. And so then you will say my name, what your name is, and you'll write it on the board. And place it. And then you can use it. Or Mrs. McDonald, or whatever you prefer.
Diet Snapple, a baby step to a better you.
I have to go to the bathroom. Do you want to time me?
I'm sorry?
Go.
It's a train wreck.
Get out, quick.
How? Bathroom window?
They talk about marriage.
Brilliant.
And then you've got your display today. Art medium that he uses in his book. And in kindergarten, we've already gotten a little sampling of collage through Eric Carl's book. What's it called?
White Rabbit?
No.
Nope. Caterpillar?
I know, it's a fish. Oh, today is Monday.
There you
I already
go.
have had a little exposure to what collage is from him. So then you sit them all down in their little spot wherever you're going to read the story, and you sit down and you actually read the story. So that gets them warmed up. We've already passed out all the supplies that we need, and they're at the rug, and you're going to read them the story. Today, and it says under Docent on page 3, today we're going to look at a story about animals in the winter. We will see that it is much harder for them than it is for us. And then he talked about the author. The author of this book is Leo Leone. He also illustrated the book. Which they will understand because they talk about that. You know, author and illustrator, they're familiar with that. He has written many stories, I'm sure you know. His stories are almost always illustrated with shapes cut out and arranged to make pictures. This is also called collage. And then it says to have a short discussion about what that means. You know, you can ask who knows what that is, and you know, see what you can come up with. You know, and they will go on forever. Right? So you kind of have to, you know, when you ask the question, you have to be prepared to wait and hear all the answers, or you know that you're going to get a lot of people, you know, and just once you've kind of cleared it up, what collage is, and you've gotten the answer that you want, and you say, okay, everybody put your hands down, so that you can move on to the next thing. Read the story. Discuss what the mice had to do to prepare for winter. And there's a series of questions, what are the seasons, etc. And then you tell them that now you're going to get a chance to make a collage, just like Leo Leone. You will need to listen to me carefully while we're working, and they get off track easily, or they get stuck on something, you know, so you have to really make sure that everybody's following you and go step by step. And I will explain it to you first, the way you will explain it to them first, the whole in its entirety. But then when they're back in their seats, and they can still be on the rug while you're doing this, so they can see you and it's close by. You'll show them. I would have all of what you have, a set of all the supplies, and you will say, these are templates, and what do we do with these? We trace them, and they're marked A, B, C, and this one's blank, and this one's for the body of the mouse. These are the rocks. These 3 different ones are rocks. So you're going to each trace A, B, and C once, and you're going to trace 3 of these on the black. Okay, and once you've traced them, you'll cut them out, and you will arrange them on your paper the way that you want them. You'll have 3 brown rocks, and you can arrange them any way that you want on your paper. Doesn't matter, do they have to be exactly like they're up here? These are some ideas, but they don't have to be exactly like that because you're going to do it the way that you guys want to do it, not the way necessarily that's in the picture. Just use your imagination. little mice, and he'll put them on a rock. You can put it on top of the rock. You can put it underneath the rock. He can be, this one just has one eye, so it looks like he's sideways, so you could put him facing in one direction. Frederick has the wiggle eyes, just Frederick, so he's the main character, so remember he's going to have wiggly eyes, and you will put him wherever you like him. He doesn't have to be in the middle. And this mouse looks like he's looking down because his ears are stuck up. So you can put him, you wouldn't want to put him, you couldn't put him this way, or you could put him this way, or you could put him that way, any way you want. Above the rock, on top of the rock, behind the rock, it's up to you. Okay? The other thing we're going to do, because this mouse has ears, and how do we get the ears, and we don't have a little template that's that size. So we want to use our thumb and stick it on the edge of the brown paper like this, and take your pencil and draw around. And how many ears are you going to need? 6, right? Okay. So you're going to need 6 ears, 3 rocks, and 3 mouse bodies, right? Okay. So everybody can go back to their seat now and get your pencil and put your name on the back of your paper and turn it over. And that's something that you need to do every time first before you forget. And of course, they are constantly reminded to do that too, but to put their name on their paper. So go ahead and do that. Put your name on your paper and flip it over. So use your template and trace 3 big rocks onto the brown paper. And as I'm leading them through it, the person that would, or whoever, if you're going to be the leader, then the helpers will go around, because this is a little hard sometimes for them, to hold that template with their finger and go all the way around. So I would just tell them, take your time, you've got lots of time, you don't have to rush. If you need help, raise your hand and somebody will come around and help you. And it will be inevitably your child that will be crying. So be prepared for that. When you're done, you can take your scissors, which we don't have in the show. We have some. You probably know what that is by now. So, and if you don't, just ask before you start. And give it attention. So you can get out quick. Because, you know, once the lesson's over, it's on to the next thing. And this is a pretty clean lesson. There's no paint or water. And those are the lessons where you're back in the back cleaning the brushes or whatever. But, and that takes a little longer. So. And you could even say, except they have their, I don't know, it depends on the teacher probably, if they have scissors in their boxes, or if the scissors are in a basket or something, then you could ask them to raise their hand when they're done, and then they're ready to go, rather than, you know, having them get all this stuff mixed up with the scraps, especially the little ears. And they like to cut those ears small. You know, they trace their thumb, they're not very big. So just tell them to take their time and kind of just supervise that a little bit as best you can. And the more helpers you have, the better it will go. So, but you can walk around too if you're really even at this point, and just, you know, kind of supervise and see how things are going. There is a videotape in this box, and when I did it last year, I would offer it to the teacher, you know, send her an email and ask, would you like the tape ahead of time? One teacher, Mrs. Lorenko, showed it to them afterwards, after they were done with the project. And sometimes they'll finish really fast, and sometimes they won't, you know, just depends on the day in the class sometimes, how much time it takes. But
I think they have 45 minutes.
45 minutes. So usually, yeah, each lesson has a time, and I know you pretty much slotted, what, an hour for most
Pretty
of them.
much
Some
most
of
of
them are
them.
going to be longer, and some of them, this is probably a short lesson. So depending on the teacher, they may want it and they may not, so just check with that.
And it's a great time filler.
Yeah,
And so if they watch it before, you also read it to them?
yeah.
And just tell them to read it.
I don't think normally they're going to want it.
Yeah.
Most of them don't want it.
So you probably want to tell them to plan to read the book too, but they
Right,
they-
and they'll, unless it's a new teacher, they'll probably know the routine already. But you know, if you're already there on the week before, say, hey, I'm going to do the lesson next week, are you interested in the video? Or,
And you can always save it in case you need time filler at the end.
Yeah. That generally doesn't
Yeah.
happen. But actually, Mrs. Lorenco's class did finish, and I don't know how much time we gave it last year, but 45 minutes isn't a long time, so
No, it's not.
you probably won't have a lot.
That's true. Cutting skills in first grade do take some practice. Though you all are doing an excellent job. So neat and tidy.
The office, at school. So you go back into where the teacher's lounges, you know, you walk in the back of that door, the teacher's lounge is off to the right, and you will go to the left in the far corner. The coffee machines are here, and there's a table with a big cutter.
Right.
And it's in that little alcove, and they're all marked.
Oh, okay.
And there'll be a sign in and out sheet there. It's on the rocks, whichever one you like. And you don't want to glue until you've decided exactly how you want them. And then you can glue them. But kind of get an idea, and you can mix them up and change your mind. And then you can get your glue stick and start gluing. So when you're ready to glue, you might want to raise your hand, and one of the moms can come around and take a look at it and see if it looks like you're ready to glue. These little guys into 4s, and you could do this ahead of time. I think I've done 4. You know, they might
They can decide just to do one.
Right,
Okay.
right, right. So once they've got everything glued, and they've got their ears going the right way, that'll help them to decide which, you know, if they want one eye or 2 eyes. And you might want to demonstrate for them, it says on here, how to use the glue stick, you know. It doesn't say glue stick, so I'm sure that they know how to use the glue stick. So I think if you had glue bottles, it would be a different story. So I think we're pretty safe with the glue sticks. They just love the glue, you know, they just love to make a mess. I'm going to give you each 4 of these little guys for the eyes. So as you're gluing, you will want to decide which of your mice is going to be Frederick. You will know where to put your wiggle eyes. And I wrote a little note in here last year. This note was not there. And, you know, we were passing out eyeballs like crazy. I was like, where do they all go? Also on the form in the office is a spot for you to say if there are not enough supplies or if they're running low. So you want to remember to fill that in so that the next person's not stuck with nothing. Uh-oh. Let's keep that on the list. Let's see. Do you guys have any in here?
Yeah, there should be. I'm sure you'll be nicer to it than the 5th graders. They like to glue too.
Around as answering questions. Today, with the tape on here so that it would have stuck. So I'm going to set my example up to show you how to draw the tail and all that other stuff on here.
Do you just stick the eyes on with glue also?
Yeah.
To look alike?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah? I don't know. I think so. It should. So, you know, even if you want to go and get the box at school the day before and take it home and look through it and read the story to yourself and, you know, set up your example and get a little comfortable, you know, and run through it in your head how it's going to go, that really helps a lot.
Just make sure we're not going to need it the day before.
Right, and you know, usually the schedule is right there, and because all these lessons are going to be done back to back, you know, in 1 month time, you really have to be careful about that. But you all have a schedule and you can see. So, you know, if it's possible to do that, because I think there's only one a day, it's not like they're going to be
Yeah,
doing
no, there's one a day.
So you'll probably be safe to take it home at the end of the day when you're picking up and taking it home. I'm setting this part up for yourself a little bit. So then you have your oil pastels. You've got your eyes. You all have your eyes on. So you like them. And then you can start putting in the detail. And you'll ask them, what kinds of details do you see in the picture that we need to include? So you say whiskers and the mouth and the nose and the tail and Frederick's little balloon. See Frederick over here. His little thought process going on here. And the words up in the right-hand corner or wherever they want to put it. And that's another reason why you really need to have it big on the wall for this particular lesson, so they can see how to spell it. It's so long and there's a lot of vowels in there that could be mixed up. And one little girl actually wrote it backwards. That's true. I can believe it. So anyway, you want then to start filling in the details. So you want to start pointing them out and asking them what they are. The little feet here. There's no feet that I can see down there. So you know you can let them just tell them they can do whatever they want to point out what the details are. You have your little, and at that point, after that explanation's been given, then you'll pass out the oil pastels so that they don't rush right into that, because they will, before you give them the directions. So, you know. And then you can also tell them that artists always sign their artwork, and they can do that, put their name in one of the corners of the box. Just with their by narrative, or they can just put their first names or whatever it is that they would like to do. That's something that artists do with their artwork. And then you can use, let's see, can I borrow some of this black? Look what she did. She put details down here with hers, and you can kind of use this as your sample because this will wash off. And then, you know, as you're discussing the different things, you can, you know, draw them in on this thing as well, the whiskers, etc.
And how does that wash off? Does it just rub off, or?
You could probably get a wipe or a Kleenex or something. You know, there's probably something wet like
That's
this
fine.
to work too. You can fill in the details. How would you like? And if you feel the need, you can always, if you're not going to be first up, you can go and watch one of these other girls do it before you have to do it. To see how it really is in the classroom, because it's a lot different in the classroom than it is sitting here with such adults and who are paying attention. So sometimes that's where you find out where the danger points are by really watching it. And that's why it is kind of fun to do it more than once. You know, once you've done it, you're like, wow, this is great. I know how to do this now. And you can, if you feel up to it, you can go into another classroom that may need some help and help those gals out.
Clean up for this? Do they just put all the...
So, as things are used, like the templates, the helpers can be cleaning those things up as you go rather than waiting to the end. And because you have to sort them all and put them all back in the bag, etc. This one's not very hard. There's not a lot of messy stuff, so it's nice. I always hated that in the kindergarten and college. Yeah.
So this is watercolor animals for first grade?
Watercolor animals for first grade. And I'm going to get my
Oh, I sent one for you. That's alright. Sorry. I felt bad since I didn't give you water, so...
Okay. So tell the children that they're going to create a fantasy animal. This is something that's going to be from their imagination. What did I do? I made some notes. Things that we're going to teach them along the way. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to show them how to draw the outline of the animal. Okay? For the project, we're going to practice on the practice paper. So when you do this, you will not give them the good piece of paper. You will just give them the first piece of paper, not the watercolor paper, because they will inevitably use the wrong piece.
Are they going to practice on newspapers?
So well, we're not going to do the newsprint. This lesson, we revised it, and we'll just use the practice. Louder. Can you tell the difference?
Okay.
Can you guys feel the difference? The bumpy one is the watercolor paper. So put that aside, and we're going to start with the drawing paper. We're going to talk about how to use the paints and brushes, how to treat them, how to get them ready, how to prime them. We're going to practice brush strokes, show them some technique, show them how to mix the paint and use primary colors to mix secondary colors. And then we're going to actually do the project, okay? Have them draw the animal and then paint it. So there's quite a bit that comes into play here. And it's a lot, I think, for first graders. So you really have to, I think it's nice to kind of tell them ahead of time what they're doing, because I think it's a little confusing when we're doing all this other stuff and they're not getting to do the project right away. They kind of, doesn't make sense. So it's really a drawing lesson primarily, and then a paint lesson. So it's two for one. And each grade usually does have a paint project and a drawing project. So this is just getting them used to how you treat paint and how you get the box ready and how what you do and what you don't do. First of all, let's see, it says demonstrate 1 minute crayon animal. And I think that the idea here is, I'm going to And you're gonna, it says in there it's a 1-minute drawing. So if the clock is in front of the room, I think they're most, they're not all in front of the room, but, and they can, explain to them what the second hand is, and when it gets to 12, you're gonna start, and you want to have them time you to see how long it actually takes. So the point is that you don't want to rush. You want to slowly take your crayon, and the first thing you want to point out to them is that you want them to hold it, not like they usually do with a point down like this. You want them to hold like a little race car, like a matchbox car. And how do you usually, what do you do with a matchbox car? You run it along the floor, And so that you want 2 fingers, and you want to use this, and they don't really understand that. So I think I would walk around and show them, exactly what I'm talking about, and make sure that they have it right, that they're working that thing right, because if they don't, then they're just going to mess it up right from the beginning. Okay, so just make sure that they've got that thing flat. And then you want to say, okay, watch the clock, and let's see how long if it's going to take me a minute to do this, because I'm really going to take my time and think of what kind of shape it is that I'm going to draw. This is going to be an animal out of my imagination. It's not necessarily going to be a cat with a tail and ears and whiskers. This is going to be something that you're going to think of. And it's not going to be right or wrong. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And I'm going to show you a few examples. You can see the finished product on the board. You can print that out. And here are some drawings done by adults, and you can point that out, because it's always the adults that do these things at these trainings, and they look so beautiful and wonderful, but theirs aren't necessarily going to look like this. Sometimes that's intimidating. And you can say, and what do you notice about these animals on the paper? Aren't they? And then you will say, well, they're pretty big, aren't they? Yeah, they're really big. Do they cover the whole paper? Yeah, they take up the whole paper. And then you can also invoke Nancy Ricciardi's name, because she's constantly telling them that when you do an art project, you want to fill up the space. You don't want to leave a bunch of white spots. You don't want to have your little animal right here in the corner and not have anything over here. So they understand that already. They've had that more than once before they know. And just show them 4 different examples. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the body. I'm not going to draw the head or the eyes or any of those things. I'm just going to draw the body. So I'm going to be thinking about what kind of animal I want to draw. And do any of you guys, have you ever heard of this book, The Lean and Dim Billy? Have you ever seen this book? No. Well, and I'm not going to read it to you, but it's a story about a dog who wanted to be a horse, and he met a witch, and she made him turn into this very strange animal. And you see that it's not just one kind of an animal. This animal has antlers and flappy ears and zebra legs and a hump like a camel. So it's not any one particular animal, and that's what you're trying to get across. And I just happen to have this at home, and it's something in my frame of reference. Anything that you have that can, make that light bulb effect is great. You could check this out at the library. We could, I could even put this in the box, and you guys could use it, because I think it's just another connection, and it helps them to understand what they're supposed to do, make that leap. So I'm going to start thinking about what kind of an animal I want. And I don't even know if I know what kind of an animal I'm going to draw, but I'm going to start by putting my crayon on the paper, and I'm going to just start drawing. And I'm not going to lift my crayon off. I'm going to do one continuous movement with my crayon. So are you ready? Are you going to time me? Can you guys see the needle over there? And
Oh, that second hand doesn't work. Sorry.
So just pretend, and I'm going to really try to take my time and think about what kind of a body I'm going to do. I'm just going to do the body.
I'll time you. Go.
So I'm just kind of thinking about it, and I'm not going really very fast, but I'm using this flat part of my crayon, and it's making a really interesting shape, and I don't even know really how it's going to come out. I'll be surprised. Hard to make it less. Here it is. That probably only took me about 10 seconds.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So, but I took my time, and here's my body of my animal. It looks I don't know how it's going to work out, but
It looks like an amoeba.
yeah, there you go. You know, and then you can say, okay, well, what else does your animal need, and what could it have? And then they'll have a whole bunch of answers, you know, antlers, but obviously you have to do the face, or the head. So you go ahead and draw the head, and that's on the little head. Maybe that'll be the tail. You know, and just show them that you're not really sure how it's going to work out, but it's just to have some fun with it. You know, and what else is missing? What else should I put on there? No feet. Okay. And you can use once you've got the head and the body, you can use your pointy part of your crayon to put in the details. Her whiskers, whatever it is that you're going to want. Maybe toes. And remember, this is just your practice one. Next time you could have a whole different idea. But this is just for practice this time. So you get the idea. I look like him. Maybe artistic. Maybe in my hair. So I always say, oh, the ears is going to look so much better than mine. Good. Make sure you fill in the space. What kind of shape is this? This is kind of a shape with curved lines. So the shape is a line which is closed. I don't know how important that is.
You don't want a hole in your animal.
Right, you want the lines to connect. Now turn your paper over. And we're going to use this to practice our strokes and practice our color, our mixing colors with our paint. Okay. Prepare your paint. Okay. So take your paintbrush and dip it in the water, and you want to prepare your paint. So get your brush wet, and then when it's full of water, you want to take it and squeeze about 2 or 3 drops in each of your colors. We call this priming our paints. Or you can either just shake it onto there too. You don't necessarily have to squeeze it on. But it takes a few minutes. And it takes a few drops to get it. There you go. And this is the first time they'll have had that. You know, as they get older, this is the same routine that they go through each time for a minute. And when you're not using your brush, you don't leave it in the cup. You leave it in the tray. We want to take good care of our brushes. Okay, so to keep our water clean, you always squeeze the brush gently with your paper towel from the tip. So once you've got your paint on your brush and you're ready to do a different color, you take your paper towel and you get the paint off first, okay? You kind of hug your brush. You put the brush in one hand and you put it in there and then you squeeze it and just hug your brush with your paper towel. And then you can rinse it out, whatever's left. But most of the paint should be on your paper towel, okay? Okay, so we're going to start by doing a pull stroke. And you want to hold your brush from the top, just as you held your crayon, and pull the paint across the page. Okay, so you want to get your paintbrush and get lots of paint on it, just like a cat lapping up milk from a bowl. And this is going to be our pull stroke. I'm just going to go across the page. And this sometimes this is kind of hard to do on the board. You just practice these little full strokes. Okay. Oh, that's fun. Like that. Then we're going to do a squiggle stroke. You know, and I don't know how important the technique is, but hold your brush sort of like you did before. And instead of doing a straight line, we're going to do a squiggly line. So see what happened when I didn't hug my brush? All the paint. Now I have blue water, and all my pretty colors are not going to be as nice. So see how much paint comes off when you use your thing, and then you rinse, and then you reload your brush. And if the kids do that, there is a bucket back there, and people can go around and change the water. You can dump in the bucket and then refill. Okay, so just do squiggly lines this time. Squiggle stroke. And the last thing we're going to do is a stipple stroke. And that is where you, instead of moving the brush, you're just going to kind of press onto the paper. And that's called stipple. And I want to make a flower with mine. Like that. What could you make with that? What could you make on your animal? Maybe claws, feet, give them some ideas what they can do with that.
Not that get too much water.
So you can, if you're getting too much water, you can just use your, just blot it onto your paper towel, and then put it back into the paint, and that'll give you a little more pigment. Okay. Very fun. Okay. Now we're going to mix colors. We're going to talk a little bit about primary colors and secondary colors. The primary colors are yellow, red, and blue. And if you mix those colors together, you can make other colors. Yellow and blue make orange. So, okay, everybody load up your brush with yellow.
Yellow and blue make green.
Right. So you'll practice that. Okay? Tell them to load up their brush, hug your brush, put it in the water, and load up your brush with orange. And the more specific you can be with them, the better. Step by step. Tell them exactly what you want them to do, because they won't have done any of this before. So just tell them to make a nice little blob of orange. Oh, orange. Yellow. We're making orange. Yellow. Get a blob of yellow. And then a blob of blue. I'm not doing this behind it. I'm doing it fast. And then you've got
Green. Yellow and blue is
so,
green.
just show them that all the different.
Red and blue is purple.
Right.
Red and yellow is
So,
orange.
it's all in the lesson. Just
Yeah.
walk them through a couple of those, and it just gives them ideas of what they can do.
Oh, you made beautiful greens.
Blob of yellow and a tiny bit of blue equals green. Oh, yes, I got that. And then you talk about warm colors versus cool colors. What are the cool colors? Blue, purple, green. Warm colors, red, orange, and yellow. So now we're ready to do our animal. So put your paper aside. You can put it on the floor, or just find or maybe, depending on the teacher, if they want to take them home. I think it's nice to just collect them and throw them out, personally. Because
The teachers will thank you for that. We have lots to send home.
yeah. So I don't know, if you have a preference, talk to the teacher about where to put it, and then you have to make sure they have their names on it, and all that. So that's going to take more time. So now you're going to get the opportunity to do your own animal. So think about what you're going to do, and get your paper ready, get your crayon ready, and hold it like a matchbook car, and take your time. Just make the body of your animal. And then when you're done, and then give them a minute. And when you're done with that, make the head. And then when you're done with it, just go step by step. So go ahead and do your animal. know, about their artwork. My son came home and said, "Oh, I'm so glad we don't have art today because I just can't do the you know." He doesn't like to paint, you know. So they do kind of. But I don't know.
Mrs.
By the
Ricciardi
time
says
they're in
this.
6th grade, they're pretty darn comfortable with this process, you know, because they've done it over and over.
There's
And
no
Mrs.
such thing
Forgy,
as
who's
wrong.
a 6th grade teacher, told me last year, she said, "I have never seen kids so comfortable with art," because I was in there doing an art lesson, and they just went to it. Nobody was complaining. They were just totally mesmerized by the process, which is really cool, you know. So they may be, you know, at this young age, unfamiliar, and they're just learning about it all, but they will get it eventually because they get it over and over.
It's wonderful. By 5th grade, I can say, prime your paints, and they know what to do. And I can say, pull stroke and stipple, and they know those terms. And there's so many places where kids don't have that kind of art knowledge, and it's wonderful. Thanks to you parents.
I never got into this as a kid. Never. So, and you just, you know, praise them. Oh, that was beautiful. And then when they're done with their shape, you can encourage them to use the black and outline, and what will that do when you outline it? Of course, everything just pops out and it looks so much more important. See how this? You take the point of your crayon this time and outline what you've already drawn. Make sure that they can see that, and you can walk around and show them. And you know, you just have to really watch them because they will want to start painting before you want them to start painting. You know, they're just so anxious to get, because they've just done that fun stuff and they want to get it going right away. But they, you know, it's hard to go back and fill in later when everything's nice and wet. They're so artistic. So neat.
I'm just impressed by how quiet they are. I start them and then I rush back and correct some math test, or... I have to admit though, every year I do watercolor flowers, which is a 5th grade one, with my students. I just love that lesson. And I usually do Nancy's projects with her, because I sit back there and I try to grade papers, but ultimately I'm like, can I have a paper too?
One year, I think it was 2nd. And remember to, how do you know, go over with them. How do you do the paint? What are you going to do first? You're going to make sure the paint's off onto your, hug your brush with your paper towel, and then dip it in the water. And you can experiment and write on the board, and it's right in the lesson, you know, what colors, you know, make green, and what the colors, you know, combinations are, so that they can experiment if they want to. I think they're at this point, they're really just ready to get it on the paper, you know, and they're not going to experiment too much. But.
And they are going to want to take their paper towels home because they think they're pretty. Even in 5th grade, they want to take their paper towels home because they think they're pretty.
And you're supposed to be practicing the strokes that you just
So
discussed.
yeah, you can discuss that, you know. And last year we had these really inadequate brushes, and it took them forever. So these thicker brushes are a lot better, and they'll be done more quickly, I think.
I was just looking at brushes in a catalog going, "Ugh." They are expensive, but it makes all the difference. So then they get to paint, and then what will happen when they're done painting?
The one thing that we didn't do was we didn't tell them to put their name on their paper. So, you know, and it gets a little tricky when the paint's on there. So make sure to remember to do that. I don't know if that's in the lesson, but try to remember that. And somebody, you know, they're pretty good.
Or since it's an artist,
They can sign the front too if they want to.
If you forgot.
Yeah, exactly. As long as it's on there, because then the teacher will.
Thank you.
You know, we kind of, at that point, this is kind of a long lesson, you know, so I think it's fairly long. And there's a lot of words on these papers, so.
And you can usually, what I do, I blot the watercolors with paper towel a little bit so they're not quite so runny when I put them away. I don't know if that helps. If they're really, really wet.
Yeah. You know, try to encourage them not to get too much. If you tell them if you get too much water in your paint, then it's going to be it's not going to be as bright as you might like it. You know, just all the little helpful hints that you can. So maybe what I would suggest is to do the 2 or 3 drops of water rather than, you know, it's quicker to do it that way, but if 2 or 3 drops is probably plenty. But that will just take a little bit more time.
Maybe you want to just pour in water.
Yeah.
And it does say in here to tell them to, you know, keep their black, you know, the outline is black and that's where the detail is, but, you know, use the black at the end. If you want to add detail, then use your black. But, you know, and then there's some kids, probably, you know, like mine, who want the black. So,
That is okay because there's
that's right.
no
What are you
wrong
gonna
in
do?
art.
What are you going to do? So the first graders, that's a big part of their curriculum. Many of the teachers, several, I think Mrs. Baffingini, Mrs. Thompson, Mrs. Cole, just totally do the rainforest. Other classes rotated last year and did different ecosystems. So some classes are going to know more than others about it. They're going to have more information, the kids who do it more in depth. So if you turn your page to the purpose, it's to learn about jungles and the animals they live in. That live in them, to learn how to make an animal collage with different kinds of papers and textures. So it's the project is a collage. But we also do teaching at the beginning. So some of the kids will know all this and you can kind of skim over it. Other classes you might want to spend a little bit more time. But it's a very time-consuming lesson, so you need to keep it going. You can't dilly-dally too much. All the supplies should be either in the box here, and there's lots of paper in here, so you kind of have to dig around. And there's also a portfolio, a yellow portfolio with all of these pictures. You know,
Yeah, don't forget the
this
portfolio.
board, yes, and the animals that go with it. Okay, so make sure you grab that. The first thing, I like to have the kids close to me, so I invite them all to come and sit, you know, in their little reading area or their story area or whatever, and so I can talk to them and then show them the project rather than holding it up and, you know, they're all over. They invariably forget the details. So the first thing is the vocabulary words, right down there at the bottom on the first page. And while you're up there, so this is how you start. You gather them all and you say, we're going to talk about the rainforest, and here are some vocabulary words. And most of them will have had these vocabulary words. So the words, you know, say, what is this? What is this? Does anybody know what this is? And you can arrange them in the order that you like. Probably collage would be last because that's the project, not so much about the rainforest, but it doesn't really matter. And on the back is the definition.
Thank goodness.
Yes. Since we have not been in first grade for quite some time, we've forgotten what some of this is. So, you know, just go through the vocabulary words quickly with them and who knows what, and they raise their hand. And try not to spend too much time on that. Okay, so procedure and setup. Discuss vocabulary words, show map, and point out the rainforest region. Here's the map. You know, this kind of goes over their head, you know, but it gives them a little. And we put little stars on there where all the rainforests are around the world. You can point that out. And you could hold that up rather, or point to it, whatever you're comfortable doing. And then there's a portion on here, it says information to familiarize the docent. Give you a little information, and I'm not going to read that. There are 5 levels in the tropical rainforest. Many of the animals can move from one level to another. And that's when we, so you can discuss the information that is in each of these 5 layers of the rainforest. Oh, you judge how much time to spend there. And then they're all still up here. We're still talking. And this is at the point where you Your board goes over. So this is the rainforest, and all the rainforest animals are in my bag here. So they each get to get an animal, and the way I did it was, picked on this particular child. Okay, you come up now, and then handed them one, and then they place it where it goes. And when I did this lesson, I didn't know where all these things went. So Thompson had the book, because she has this felt board, so those kids know. So then I could kind of cheat and say, okay, where's this guy, and you can kind of familiarize yourself a little bit ahead of time. But this is the, what kind of monkey is this? No, I didn't know. This is a three-toed sloth, okay, right here under canopy. Okay, and you need to be familiar. The canopy is, there's the sky, and then the canopy comes second, the understory or middle layer, the herb or bottom layer, and then rivers and lakes down here. Okay, so they come up, and where do you think this goes, and what kind of animal is that, and you identify the animal, and then they get to place it on here. And you can ask, does anybody know, if they don't know where it goes, and just kind of do it that way, but try to keep that moving, because that can take quite a while too. So try to, get everybody gets a turn. There's plenty of different things in here. There's at least 20. There might be a couple extra. Okay, so once you get all those on, then you explain the project. Where are we? Demonstration. Show children the project they will be making and explain how. Today we're going to make a collage of creatures from the jungle. We'll be using templates. What is a template? This is what a template is. And we're going to trace around the template. And everybody will get to pick which template they like. There's a macaw, a flying lizard, boa constrictor, or a butterfly. And if there aren't enough for each child to have the same one, so if you pick one and somebody else has it, just wait a minute and we'll all get it done. So I'll just explain it to you, and then we can go ahead and do it. Okay, so if this isn't available, just a minute and somebody will be done. And you can have what you want. The butterfly, of course, is huge, and that takes a lot more time. And all the girls want the butterfly. And all the boys want the boa constrictor. So these are the two most popular ones. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to trace with a pencil. We're going to take our paper with our pencil, and we're going to trace around it. And you show them how they do that. And then once you've got your template traced, you take your black pen and you go around your outline with the black. And then what the docents do after this step is complete, and of course make sure they have their name on the back or somewhere. And the thing, actually, let's see, you end up having to cut it out. So once it's cut out, so it has to be within the range of the template, or it will get cut off. So make sure that they've got it, they can hold it up and write their name once they've got it traced and their black line on there. The trick is, a lot of times what happens is that the black line gets, when they do their project, the line gets covered up and they can't see where the line is. So the docents go around and hold it up to the light or hold it up to the window and go again on the back side and trace so that they can come back when it's dry and cut the back out. Cut it at the back rather than the front.
Yes. Okay, go.
So we just had a suggestion that, while the kids are doing something else, like the felt board, you can have the helper docents go around while you're doing the felt board and trace the outline on the back of the paper.
So the kids would trace and then do the felt board
and then make sure that their names are within the lines, on the back. So that means that you will have already have explained what you're doing and passed out the templates and done all that before you do the felt board project. So you can rearrange things to Yeah, you don't have to.
However it works
You
best
do it
for
the way
you.
you want to do it, the way it feels right.
So would it be
and
bad to have
flows.
some kids tracing while you're doing the felt board?
There's a tons and tons of stuff in this box. Paper, you will notice wrapping paper from previous years, samples, people will throw stuff in here, stuff that I brought from home last year, stuff that you might have laying around. These kinds of things are very fun because they're shiny and it's, things that you can, chip bags, that kind of thing. These are easy to tear. You don't want them to cut the paper, but this stuff will not cut. These chip bag things will not cut, so that's why you have the scissors here, because you will have
Will not tear, so they have to
right.
cut them right.
So you want them to have fairly good sized chunks of whatever, because it's going to take them a while to do this if they don't. So just make a little cut, right? So 1-inch pieces. The bigger the better. And as they're doing the project, make sure you wander around and make so that they're doing that, not doing these little teeny weeny things. And you can even kind of help facilitate that and tear some of it up ahead of time, or tear some of it, kind of help them along, because it's going to take a while. Just show them there's lots of different kinds of fun things to use, but just big chunks. You want big pieces, not teeny weeny little pieces. And then demonstrate how to glue the pieces on. So once you've got your template all ready to go, and you can show them what it's going to look like, at the end. This is what we're going to do. This is what it's going to look like. And here's one that I've started. And what do you notice about this? That I didn't stay within the lines. They're all into staying in between the lines, right? But on this project, it's really, really important to overlap. Go over the line and overlap each piece of paper. And they'll start, some of them will start, go on a piece of, and you tell them start at one end and go down, rather than, trying to a little here, a little there. So once you're ready to go, let's pretend like this is our starting place here. Just put a little bit of glue, and what we've done here is this is not straight glue, it's like half glue and half water. And just paint a little bit on there, paint the line, and put the thing on. Okay? And make sure you overlap, you put it over the other piece. And notice what I'm doing, I'm going over the line. Just keep emphasizing that, and if it doesn't want to stick down, just put a little bit of glue on this side. Just glue it down, and put a little bit more underneath, and just get it so it sticks. And just keep going.
And is the glue pre-mixed?
Yes.
With the water?
Yes. No.
No.
You won't have to do that. So there are these bottles of glue. There's 3 of them, and then just a little bit in there,
And then mix the water.
mixed up with the paintbrush. Okay. And just keep going. Just keep overlapping those pieces, and use different colors and make it interesting. Okay. And just cover the whole thing. Concentrate on what you're doing, and not too much talking, and that. No white spaces.
Yeah.
No white spaces, that's right. Okay, so that's how you do it. You don't want to put the glue, in front of them too soon, because they're going to be still over here, so you'll be getting the glue and everything ready for them as we're talking. So that's really it. That's really it. It just takes a while. So, just make sure to leave enough time. And at the end, last year, we read in this story, which is a great story. I don't know if you've read it before, but it's all about this guy who...
It is kind of a long story, though.
But you can read it fast.
It is beautiful,
We
though.
crammed it in, and we
I
added this
love
last
it.
year, and that's why it's not in the information. We just thought, somebody said, oh, that's such a great book, and we thought, okay, we'll do
Well,
that
and
too.
part of it, doesn't it have something to do with the recycling? That was part of what you talk about, is how the reason we're using these extra scraps, it's sustainable recycling, so that so that we don't waste all these things, and it helps save us at the same time.
And that's what this is. No, that's okay. No, that's a good question. And, they have to dry, and you're gone, and they cut them out later.
Oh,
with the
okay.
teacher. Yeah, when they're dry in the afternoon, because that'll only take them couple of minutes to cut it out. And then the teacher gets to decide, how they want to use that. But usually they're just left like this. They can, I suppose they could be laminated. Oh, I know what I forgot. But we have all this fun stuff that we put on at the end. So when they're all done, don't leave this stuff laying around because they'll all be at it, Or the feathers. This was the big thing. They love these feathers. Would you like to pick out,
A
2
feather.
or, 3 feathers,
A feather.
Or, yeah. Or would you like to put some of this other fun stuff? You can point out. Look at how interesting that is. That guy has a shiny beak. That really emphasizes beak. And so if you're, here's some pretty feathers that are, for tails. And exciting. And if you want to put some of this, I'm looking to see if there's this is one that has, some really fun stuff. And some of them will want it, and some of them won't. Some classes everybody wants it, and next class nobody wants it. So you never can, but you can offer that and go around with your little bag at the end. And actually, these should be on the wall too. Some of these. This one is the final product. And this you could hang up. A good example of one with texture. And then you can hang maybe one of these up so they see that you're overlapping, that kind of thing. And I like to, ask them, what are we going to do? Are we going to go over the lines or not? And to kind of remind them, because there's always a handful of them who don't hear you when you say, over the line.
It's okay. They still don't hear in 5th grade.
So all of them need to be traced on the back.
Yes. Yes, all of them need to be traced on the back. So it's really a very easy, simple project, but it's very time consuming and just got to keep it going.
Is it all the paper just kind of backing up on each grouping table with the different groups? So is the tearing a big part of their project, or could you tear all the pieces up before and just put a big thing
I would
in
let
front?
them do some, and you can,
Okay.
pre-tear some of it, but as you're going around helping, I was like handing them pieces. Okay, that butterfly, let's go, I'll help you, and let's keep it going, because otherwise it would be there forever. And I think, first graders pretty much they don't want to spend half an hour on their project. They want to do it, right? They want to see, you can give them about 20, 25 minutes.
Well,
maybe
some
30
do and
minutes.
some don't.
This is a longer one, probably, but they are looking for quick results usually, pretty quick. So some of them might get frustrated, but generally they're pretty interested in the
They
rainforest.
like this one.
Yeah,
They
they
like
do.
this one a lot.
Yeah,
They
they
really
do.
do.
So, I don't know how much time was given to that particular, but it needs
About an hour.
It needs a good hour at least, And you can usually negotiate.
Yeah, and
a
if
little
you
bit
run
with the
over,
teacher.
you just tell them tough.
Yeah,
And
they're pretty happy.
Have to start early.
Yeah.
And they
they're-
know,
Getting
the
right on.
teachers know that this is a long project.
And the teachers have seen, all the teachers have seen them before, most of us, so.
So just, and we want to keep them nice. So really, really, really soak them well. If you've got a cut and run out of the classroom, take them to the back of the office, where the supplies are, and use that sink and just really wash them. Because that glue just gets really stuck up in there, and just put them back nicely. And just make sure you get them all back.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
We'll start
It's
from
okay.
the beginning.
Clay creatures.
And the main idea, and another thing that'll be different about it, there's this little folder here that shows you how to cut the clay. It comes in big blocks. And you will also be using red clay in the lessons instead of the white stuff. So when
We're
you go look at it,
recycling from
it
Helping
looks-
Hands.
Oh, okay. It looks like, it just looks like a dark reddish, they call it red stone or something, but so you'll look for the red clay instead of the clay.
It'll be the only clay in there.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because they'll be done with all the white clay lessons by then.
And I delivered it today, and there's 500 pounds of it on a shelf. You can't miss it.
Can't
So
miss
do we
it.
pre-cut it?
So, yeah.
Once you get
so
into the classroom. It
yeah,
literally,
big gold block, and you go like this, and go like that, and then turn it over, and then slice them off.
each piece goes into 5. It's pretty basic.
And so each piece will make 20.
Each block will make 20, so there's one block for each class.
For each class. And I usually try to get there a little early on those, because it does take a while to get all that stuff cut get it all cut and slapped out. But I wouldn't give the kids the clay until you're ready for them to actually use it, because they just can't get their little fingers off it. So you can cut it and have it on the mats in the back, or wherever on the side, or the helpers can be cutting it while you're talking about the lesson, whatever. But I wouldn't hand them the actual clay until you're ready to have them actually work with it. And there's also in the box too. I've got it laid out here. You can display. There's a little step-by-step thing. You can either lay it so you can see it to remind yourself, or you can put it on the board to remind them. Either way, but there's a nice little diagram. So the point of doing this lesson is just kind of, part of it is just to explore clay and see what, you know, the characteristics of it, proportions. Keep your hands off the clay. The proportions of, and to talk about animals. And so there's all these pictures that are in this portfolio. And when I've done this, I've, you know, pasted a few of them up on the board. And then I usually talk about, there's two things to talk about. One is to talk about the clay, and the other thing is to talk about animals. And with the clay, they had some in one project in kindergarten, so they'll know some, but you kind of go, you know, what is clay made out of? And they'll say, you know, dirt or whatever, and it's like, yeah, dirt and water. And, you know, and talk about how when you overwork clay, it gets all dried and tired, just like you do when you're out running around and get worn out, and then it doesn't hold together as well. So you talk a little bit about the nature of clay, and then what we're going to make is a sculpture. And if you can ask them, you know, who knows what a sculpture is, and they'll raise their little hands, and you can talk about, you know, have you seen a sculpture? What is a sculpture? It's like a three-dimensional piece of art. And so we're going to make a sculpture out of our clay. And then you can talk about the animals. You know, what kind of features, like they say on this sheet here, you know, people and animals have some of the same basic features, and I'll just say, you know, what are some features that every animal has? And they'll, you know, eyes, nose, ears, and they get a kick out of it if you say rear end, you know, things like that. They would like that kind of stuff. And talk about how when you've got the pictures up, you can sort of say, you know, so all these animals have those same basic parts, but look how different they look, you know, like this guy has these little round fuzzy ears, and their ears are kind of closer to their head. And you got penguins, you can't see their ears at all, but they're there. You know, you can just kind of talk about the different features on the animals. And once you've talked about features, you can also talk about other differences between them. Like, you know, like this one would be furry, so it has some texture to it. These guys look really smooth. You know, this one has this little triangle nose. These guys' face is kind of, you know, you can just say whatever you want about them, but there's a bunch of little pictures, and I usually kind of try to pick out some that I think are particularly fun to talk about. And so then you kind of review with them. So the creatures we're going to make, what are they going to have? And they'll say stuff, you know, head, body, arms, and you can write those just to sort of remind them what it is they're trying to make out of this. So then you're going to demonstrate basically what you're going to do. You're going to say, this is what we're going to do. You're going to have a block of clay, and this seems to work. They sometimes have a hard time with the clay because their hands are pretty small, and this clay is pretty stiff. So
the red clay is much softer.
Is it
than
softer?
it was.
This last year, there was one kind last year that was really hard. The really dark red stuff was almost too hard.
I got the kind that the clay lady says is very soft and malleable for children.
Good. That'll be good because that was the most frustrating part, is you try to get them to make it, and you guys can go along and do it with me because it'll be more efficient that way. But when you're doing it with the kids, you'll want to show them the whole thing. So you first want to get it into sort of an oval or a ball, something that's...
So we will have not handed out the clay yet.
No, they won't. Yeah, they won't even have it.
Demonstrate.
So you're going to demonstrate. And
okay.
if you make kind of a, you know, kind of something like that, and for them sometimes they even have to pound it on the table.
And they really like it when it's hard for you, because then that makes it okay when it's hard for them.
Hard for them. So you go, you know, sometimes it's kind of hard, but you know, when you get your thing to look something like that, what was one of the first things we talked about that our animal needs? And it needs a
Head!
So for your head, oh, I almost forgot too. The other thing about this lesson that's important for them to know is that we're going to be pulling the features out of the clay. We're not going to take off a piece and stick it on. So once a piece falls off, it's gone. So if you pull a piece of clay off, we're not going to stick it back on. So the idea is to do a pulling out and sort of molding and shaping, but no sticking back on. And you have a heart attack with this lesson because you're so afraid there's going to be some big air bubble in them, because you see how these things come out and it's like, they're going to blow up and kill, I know. But I don't think any of them have that I've ever known about, so it's a little more forgiving than you think. But so for the purposes of our thing, we want to tell them not to stick on. So it works pretty good if you have it in sort of an oval, to think of like about a third and sort of squish off, pull off a head.
Now yours is pretty smooth. Is that key to getting, I mean, should we have them smooth?
It doesn't have to be really smooth, because they're going to be messing around with a lot, as you can see from these samples.
Yours is smooth.
The idea also isn't necessarily for it to look like a real animal. This creature is going to come out of your imagination. Oh, I forgot something. I hate that. Sometimes at the beginning of this too, after I've talked about the features, there's this little book where they're all mixed up.
Oh, fun.
And I'll say, so maybe your animal is going to have, they really got a laugh out of this. Like, here's this dog head, but look at that, he has bird wings and skinny little legs. And, you know, what happens if we put a different kind of leg? Here's this guy with all his bumpy little head, but he's got these dog feet and a cat body. They get kind of a laugh out of that too. So I've used that. And so you've got a head. Once you have kind of a head, roughly, the next thing, what else do we need? What's a major thing that most of these animals have?
Legs, legs!
Legs and arms. And this is kind of the trickiest part of the whole thing.
I cheated, I looked on the
And
poster.
is getting the legs to get pulled out. And you can, what kind of works kind of well is, there's all these little tools, there's a popsicle stick, because if you have them make like an actual thing like this, kind of, if it's going to have 4 legs or whatever.
A T or a plug.
Make like a T or something. That helps a lot. Otherwise they really have, and then you got to really stick your thumb in there to be able to pull it out. And you're going to pull out some arms and legs. And it makes it a lot easier if they make that crisscross in there. Otherwise, they have a really hard time getting it to come out.
Oh boy, I might need help on this.
So when you've got, and then you can talk about, like when you show how you're making your arms and legs, you can say, you know, like, what does he look like he's doing? He's sitting like that. How could I make him, if I wanted him to stand up, he's going to need pretty strong, sturdy legs on him. I might leave him like that. But if he's going to be sitting, you know, his arms can be a little bit more sticking out.
I think my guy's head's too big.
And you'll notice, you can always squish it back down. And you might notice, and especially when they're doing it too, because the more you work with it, it dries out like we talked about at the beginning. And there's a little squirt bottle, which I filled up. And if they get a lot of it's getting really dry and cracked, you go around and have your helpers give it a little squirt of water and... Oh,
I saw you fill it up.
I had it. Like if it's getting dry and cracked. Oh, great. Well, it's a good idea anyway to squirt a little water on it. And then once they have arms and legs, or however they're going to want to have, you know, and then you can talk about some of the other things, like if it's on his head, you know, you can start, okay, I think he needs some ears. And you can pinch out some ears. The main thing is, like I said, we're pulling the features out. We're not going to stick them on. And once the area that seems to cause the most difficulty is people, they have ideas of what they want for a tail. And that gets kind of tricky. If they want a longer tail, I've sometimes, kind of hard, but I've done the thing with the tool where I've kind of, you know, kind of inched it in a little bit to help you get a little more clay if you want to have a tail. I would encourage them not to have something that's too long and skinny or easy to break off in the kiln, because
It will break off
will
in the
break
kiln.
off.
So who fires them?
There's actually a volunteer who goes around
Wow.
and does that.
But if you're willing to do that,
we can teach. They can
I
teach
can't
you
even
how to do
piano.
it. And then you can show them how to make. So they can put some ears. Maybe they want to have some put some little tusks or something on this guy.
that is the cutest little animal.
And then so he'll have his little warthog tusks on him. And anyway, and then you can talk a little bit too when you're doing this, like, okay, what does it do if I turn his head a little bit, you know, does it make him look a little different if I want him to be looking a different way? You can think about that
It
a little
looks like
bit.
Yoda. Sorry.
Kind of odd looking. And when you have, and then there's two ways to go about this next part. You can either have the kids get this far and then try to stop them and tell them about texturing the animals. Oh, you guys got good ones. That's cute. Or you can go ahead and demonstrate it. And it's up to you. It's kind of sometimes hard to get their attention back if they've started. But then you can talk about how they can show texture. Say they want to have fur on their critter. And your instruction sheet shows a few examples. But say this guy, they want this guy to be furry. So how could you show fur? You could, you know, make little scratches. That could be fur. So maybe I want him to have a little fur on his back. What if I want him to have scales or look like feathers? You can take a popsicle stick and you'll do that on his head. And if you do like that and then you overlap them, you can make little scales. It's kind of a fishy or dragon looking critter. So you can show them some different ways, different textures. You could use, I think we have some, yeah, there's some straws in here. Those are good for making eyes.
And I think it's how, does it say that on that back page?
Yeah, there's
four?
quite a few things inside that tells about making scales, making a furry texture. We also have some little toothpicks. That's another thing that's kind of, and what I've done when I did this lesson is when I handed out after they've all been working for a while and they've got the basic animals, then I've gone around and handed out the little goobers so that it's not too distracting. There's little toothpicks in there so you can use to make little details if they want. They get pretty creative with this actually. And the main thing is, like I said, that they shouldn't stick parts back on, and you don't want anything that's that's going to break off easily. If when they're all finished, you want to have them put their initials on it somewhere with a toothpick. And like this one here is pretty hollow, but a lot of times you'll have something like this, you know, that's pretty thick in the middle. And then you want to like hollow it out a little bit, and you can just do that for them.
On all of them?
They don't all need it. If it's something like this is pretty, it'll dry okay.
Only if there's like an inch thickness of clay.
Sometimes there'll be one, like this guy here. If this was all solid, it would be a bit much. So you just kind of dig some, and that one is another example. You can do a couple things. You can stick the end of a fork, or you can just take your finger, or you can scoop some out.
And do you scoop it out or just push it up?
It doesn't really matter. The main thing is just to kind of make the thing
So
so it'll
it'll
dry
dry.
out better and it won't be so wet in the middle.
Because if it stays wet in the middle and it gets fired, it has a greater chance of exploding.
Of exploding and all those things that you fear. And,
So that would be fine.
Yeah, that would work fine. And like this one's got scooped out. This one, they basically just stuck a hole in the top.
Then do they put a face on them?
Yeah, sure. They can do, like this guy has a smile. Like I put some eyes and I put the little thing, but I didn't really put much of a mouth. So you know, they can do whatever they want, and they get into it pretty much.
And then the teacher will have someplace specific that she wants you to have them put them to dry. And then I'll wrangle somebody into coming to fire them in a couple weeks once they're dry.
Yeah, and usually they have you cover them, like you lay them out and you cover them with wet, damp paper towels, like wherever
And
they're
should we?
sitting. Yeah, you should go ahead and do that. Just, you know, paper towels and I just remop, 4 feet and lay 'em all
Especially when
over
we're
the
running the heaters and stuff in the winter, the air in the classroom just dries out so fast.
really
It
dry.
helps.
So that helps them dry more evenly. So yeah, so that's kind of basically it. And the most tricky thing is just that the kids sometimes get frustrated. And this is why I don't usually tell them to make it, I tell them that it's not going to necessarily look like a real creature, because they'll be, I want it to look like a cat, but I can't get this thing to do this. And, to try to de-emphasize whether it looks like anything specific, but just that it comes from their imagination.
So we do the imaginary animal.
Yeah, and a lot of them do come out looking like an animal, but it doesn't have to. I mean, these are fairly.
I'll tell you, that seal looks awfully close
I
to
know
the
that
seal that I saw out at the river.
That's great. We just took the kids to see the whale that's been out by.
Oh, I wanted to go.
Did you, was he there this weekend?
Yeah, well. Between your chin and the top of your scalp.
It is?
Is it?
It is.
Cool. You can imagine a class full of 11-year-olds doing this.
Yeah. That's neat though, though.
Okay, distances are approximately the same. The average head is divided into 2 equal parts. The upper half reaches the top of the scalp and the lower half to your chin. So, you've already learned something, haven't you? Okay, our first drawing, we're going to do a number of drawings today, and the first one is a face. So we've already got this line across the center here. I'm going to draw another line vertically, just as a guide. That's all it's there for. But it'll help me when I'm placing the features. Real likely. You probably can't even see that. That's okay. We'll start with the eyes, which are going to go right across here on this line. And you want to space them roughly in thirds. The width of your eye is approximately the same as the width of your nose. And so the space between your eyes is also approximately the width of your eye. The width of the face of your nose. So you're kind of thinking in terms of columns in thirds going down.
Susan, put your pencil away.
So I'm just going to draw in the eye. Here.
Now, if you were demonstrating, could you demonstrate in chalk on the blackboard, or does it work better to
It actually
do?
says to do that in here, I think.